Alrighty, welcome all. We're glad you're here to join us. My name is Miranda, and I'm joined today by my analyst colleagues at Swan Island Networks, Ariel Goldfarb and Noah Hartnett. Our webinar today is a first in a series of dashboard building demonstrations where we'll show you how easy it is to spin up situational awareness dashboards using our TX Global and TX 360 tools. Today's focus will be on hurricanes, which is a timely topic with the ongoing passage of ex-tropical storm Cristobal and more activity on the horizon. So if you have any questions during this presentation, please type them into the window on the right side of the GoToWebinar screen, and we'll do our best to answer them in the Q&A period at the end of the demonstrations. My colleague Ariel will now provide a short overview of hurricanes and some expectations for this year's season.
So before delving into dashboard creation, I'll provide a short overview of hurricane season and some expectations for this year's season in particular. So what exactly is hurricane season? In March each year, the United States braces for a slew of severe weather threats, from tornado season to severe heat and wildfire season, and right into Atlantic hurricane season. This season in particular is the time during each year in which most tropical cyclones are expected to develop across the Atlantic Ocean. The official start of hurricane season is June 1st, which was just about a week ago for us, and lasts through November 30th. The areas most impacted by the season are those closest to the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Caribbean Sea. So what can we expect for this year's hurricane season, which just kicked off? Before the official start of hurricane season, we already faced two pre-season systems in the United States. Tropical Storm Arthur hit North Carolina on May 16th, and Tropical Storm Bertha hit Florida and South Carolina on May 27th. This is the sixth straight year in which tropical storms have formed prior to the official start of the season. This year also marked the first year since 2016 in which two or more named storms developed before the season's official start, and it is the earliest third named storm on record, with Tropical Storm Cristobal hitting on June 2nd. Evidently, we're already facing an unprecedented season and have to prepare for it accordingly. With that in mind, we turn to some expert predictions to gain a better sense of what is in store for this season and to really highlight the need for preparedness. Colorado State University's Tropical Meteorology Project predicts an above-average Atlantic hurricane season for this year, with a forecast of 16 named storms, including 8 hurricanes to be expected. As you can see from the diagram provided by weather.com on the right, that is at least 3 storms greater than the average. But Colorado State is not alone in this kind of prediction. Just last month, the Climate Prediction Center, or the CPC, at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, better known as NOAA, released their predictions, with a forecasted 60% chance for an above normal season, and a prediction of 70% chance of having 13 to 19 named storms. Of those storms, the CPC predicts that 6 to 10 could develop into hurricanes, including 3 to 6 major hurricanes. And while the forecasts from the various bodies differ slightly in their numerical predictions, they paint a very similar picture of the expectation for this season, highlighting the possibility of more storms than average making landfall in the United States. Whether you're a business owner or an individual, hurricanes have widespread effects in impacted areas. From heavy rain and flooding to high winds, storm surges, and tornadoes, hurricanes are accompanied by a slew of severe and damaging weather. With this comes the widespread physical destruction and the economic cost associated with such damage. AccuWeather estimates that the total damage and economic loss caused by named storms in 2019 amounted to $22 billion in the United States alone. This includes damage to homes, businesses, cars, and their contents. And one can only assume that with more storms predicted for this season, the damage will be even more significant and bear an even higher economic toll. In addition to the threats of additional storms this season, we're also facing unprecedented times with the worldwide pandemic of COVID-19. This poses additional challenges for evacuation, aid, and sheltering, as well as long-lasting health consequences. It's clear that this year, more than ever, it's imperative to adequately prepare for the season. And with that in mind, I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Noah Hartnett, who will walk us through some of the resources and dashboards that we have put together at Swan Island Networks to help track and prepare for the impending hurricanes.
Thank you so much for the great overview, Ariel. As Ariel said, my name is Noah Hartnett. I'm an analyst at Swan Island Networks, and I'm going to talk about hurricane preparation today. So the first step in preparing for a hurricane is seeing it coming. The TX Global North America Tropical Weather Dashboard, which we're looking at right now, and is available with a TX Global subscription, is a one-stop shop for intelligence on emerging tropical weather threats, giving you the advance warning you need to prepare once they occur. But what is a dashboard? A dashboard is a collection of different information streams displayed together to provide a comprehensive understanding of a topic or incident. A dashboard is made up of building blocks or gadgets, each with their own collection of inputs and filters. The inputs are channels already in the TX360 system, and they can include government resources, expert meteorologist reports, news sources, or blogs. The filters, either by keyword or geotag, can shape those channels to specific incidents, like the recent Cristobal, or general topics like hurricanes, tropical storms, or storm surge. Let's now take a quick look at all the different resources you can access via the North America Tropical Weather Dashboard to monitor threats to your organization this hurricane season. Okay, so we're now looking at the North America Tropical Weather Dashboard within TX Global. This dashboard has 6 gadgets in total, and each of them displays its own unique information stream. The top left gadget, Tropical Weather Alerts, provides analysts curated alerting on hurricane and tropical storm related threats anywhere in the US or surrounding Pacific, Atlantic, or Gulf. Here you can expect to see alerts on developing systems, storm surge warnings in coastal areas, and storm impacts on safety, transit, and infrastructure should they make landfall. Below that in the bottom left, the NOAA/NHC Updates gadget provides alerts from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and National Hurricane Center. These are the 2 main government authorities tracking and providing intelligence on tropical weather impacting the US. These resources will provide, among other things, consistent updates on strength and status of storms throughout their life cycles, from origination to conclusion, in the case of recent Cristobal, all the way to the Midwest. Tropical Weather News and Blogs monitors US press reporting and specific tropical weather focused blog content on current storm systems and their impacts on the US. Under Resource and Links, you can find great outside resources to prepare for and monitor storm impacts. Finally, on the far right side, under Current Activity by NOAA, we have 2- and 5-day outlooks for potential tropical storm activity in the Atlantic and Pacific. This is a fantastic visual resource that you can use to quickly check for any emerging threats. For instance, there's currently something going on in the Atlantic. Scroll down here and see it highlighted there. If we want to get more information, we can click on this and go to the NOAA site to get some more information. If we go down, we can see that there's currently a tropical wave developing. Highlighted here, you can see the information there. It's not expected to significantly develop further, but we can monitor it using this resource. Finally, in the center, we have the map. There's a lot of different information being displayed here. First off, the orange points are geotag analyst curated alerts on tropical storm activity and its impacts in the US area. We can also see the NWS radar displayed across the US, and when tropical storms or hurricanes are present, their forecast track and cone of uncertainty will also be available. With these resources, you can quickly visualize and monitor the location and track of significant tropical weather to determine its impacts on your interests. With the TX Global North America Tropical Weather Dashboard, you have all you need to monitor for incoming tropical weather threats this hurricane season.
Thank you so much, Noah. As I'll explain shortly, there are many dashboard configurations, and while our TX Global Tropical Activity Overview gives a great snapshot for ongoing hurricane monitoring, organizations may choose a different version to fit their needs with a custom TX360 setup. Last year, our analyst team created 3 dashboards for Hurricane Dorian, an overview like the new TX Global dashboard you just saw, a dashboard geared towards preparation before the storm, and also a during storm impacts dashboard designed for monitoring reports of impacts like storm surge, flooding, damaging winds, and rescues, as well as a utility by utility breakdown of power outages, and a post-storm updates about damage surveys, infrastructure statuses, and any related crimes like looting. Dashboards are consisted of gadgets, each one intending to show a different piece of the overall relevant information landscape. And information can come in the form, like Noah said, of map overlays, mapped alerts, webcams or streaming video, alert feeds, news feeds, updated statuses of utility outages, and links to even more resources. And gadgets can be split out by subject or source type. And the subjects people like to see on their dashboards can include preparation, so evacuation zones and routes, advice for businesses and people before, during, and after the storm, shelter locations, rescues during the storm, travel disruptions before, during, and after, both to ground and air travel. There's also the shortages to keep in mind, fuel, supply, when grocery stores running out of things. That's the kind of reports that news will cover during these storms. And of course, power outages. Utilities will report on their own response to hurricanes, as well as news outlets and journalists. And of course, emergency and disaster declarations issued by government bodies can make up their own gadgets as well. And then this year's wild card, COVID-19, may also prove to be an appropriate gadget to add to your hurricane dashboard. This approach of having topical gadgets, each consisting of many sources, means that you get breaking updates about these topics as soon as it's out there on the internet. Sometimes these aren't always vetted, or it might vary some important sources updates, like from the Hurricane Center or National Weather Service. And sometimes the volumes are too high. So it's going to be up to personal preference how people configure their dashboards. There's a second version with the strict separation of sources for gadgets, where instead of having topical gadgets, you can organize your dashboard into sections based on what sources. So a gadget for the National Hurricane Center, a gadget for local news outlets, one for state, local, and federal government officials. And this is the kind of dashboard that I'm going to demonstrate building for you guys. In TX360, we have something called Workspaces, which is an easy way to organize your content around a new project, like hurricane monitoring. In this demo workspace, there are channels, asset collections, and dashboards available. And once you've decided on this general outline for which gadgets you want to include on your dashboard, it can seem daunting to source the right channels for your map and list gadgets. So for me, it's helpful to categorize channels into 2 common themes. Some channels have a regional focus, and you want this region to match up with the one impacted by your hurricane or tropical storm. For our example, we're going to use Tropical Storm Cristobal. This made landfall in southeastern Louisiana, along the coast there, next to Mississippi as well. So we're going to have our content for that region for this demonstration. The types of channels that have this regional focus are local and state government officials, like emergency management, state police, governors. There's also local news on the city or state level, and local utilities. Many utilities, such as Entergy, will be organized around a region, such as the one in the path of this storm. Updates from these regional focused channels are already about the places that we want to focus on. So we don't have to work too hard to filter them to be on topic. In the midst of a storm, some of these channels will be laser focused, preparing or responding to the storm, and their updates won't need much additional filtering. Filtering in this case can even backfire. You might accidentally filter out an important update. In this here, we have some specific location channels here, such as Louisiana government officials, including the Homeland Security, State Police, and Governor, Louisiana utilities such as Clayco, Energy, and SWEPCO, and then Mississippi government officials as well in a similar format. We also have Department of Transportation for Mississippi as well as Louisiana. So these are already going to be talking about those places. And during a storm, they're going to be providing updates that are relevant, that you care about. The second common theme that channels will take on is more topical rather than a regional focus. These channels are the ones centered around the subject of hurricanes or its impacts. Your National Hurricane Center only going to be talking about hurricane. Keyword searches such as this Bing News search for Cristobal will only be talking about Cristobal. Social media searches as well can be targeted this way, such as this Reddit and Flickr photo Twitter, or this Flickr photo search with Cristobal keywords as well. These kinds of channels are talking about the hurricane or tropical storm in this case. And so if they need additional filtering, it will probably be around the location you care about. But in a lot of cases, again, when these storms are ongoing, they're already going to be focused on the alert you care about, which will make our dashboard easier to put together. So if I go to our dashboards tab and click on this dashboard, we have a typical layout used for hurricane dashboards. And we also have a map gadget already centered here on your dashboard. I can start with this map gadget here and give it a name. And also look back time if I want to limit the alerts to a certain time period. At the height of the storm, most people would probably want this within 24 hours, maybe as few as 6 or even 2 or 3. Since this is a somewhat historical case, I'm just going to leave it further out since this landfall was this past Sunday. To add channels or to add alerts to the map gadget, we can go in and we can select any channels that have a location flag and filter for if we so choose. We can also see that this map was already implemented with a watches, warnings, and radar overlay, which will allow us to monitor weather on an ongoing basis without any updates necessary. You can also zoom in to where you want to focus the map on, either at a hyper-local, perhaps New Orleans, or at a more regional or national, especially since this storm has had impact across not only the Southeast, Gulf Coast there, but also in the Midwest and now Canada. So I might choose an extent about there and save. It's also easy to add over to this map. During the storm, the National Hurricane Center provides GIS data to add your cone of uncertainty, the expected track and points of the hurricane or tropical storm. In this case, I'm just going to use the historical set provided by the National Hurricane Center. And it's as easy as dropping it on the map to get an idea of the track, the cone, as well as watches and warnings issued. In this case, storm surge warnings, one of the deadliest threats from hurricanes. So our map gadget here is looking pretty good, so I might move on and select a new gadget to filter down. The first thing that comes to mind are the National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, and NOAA. So I'm going to use this larger gadget here for those sources, since their updates to me are probably the most relevant and the most important. Not all of the alerts issued by them will have geotags, so I'm just going to keep this as a list for easy viewing. I'm going to go back out to that workspace where all that content has already been organized. And I'm going to grab, in this case, an aggregate of Atlantic tropical cyclone channels, which you can see. There's a spread of them down here, and I can even open this up and show exactly what's going into this feed. In this case, it's a mix of official Twitter feeds, the official RSS feeds coming from NOAA. Once that channel is selected, I'm also going to grab meteorologist and weather blogs. These are also talking about vetted information sources. They're on topic about hurricanes and cyclones, and they're really included here as well. And the volume matches pretty well with the National Hurricane Center channels. Here I can preview what those alerts all added together look like. And if there's anything that I want to exclude, I can filter down by keywords. So perhaps hailstones or questions. I'm not interested in including those. Maybe a region that I know about. And you can apply your filters and see what your feed will look like. I can drag gadgets around if I choose a different layout. Perhaps I want the map to be less of a focus and these text updates to be more of a focus. You don't have to commit. Next, I might create a channel for local, state, and federal officials. They're also providing very important updates during a storm. They're responsible for issuing evacuation notices, disaster proclamations, and keeping citizens and businesses up to date on what their storm response might be. I'm going to grab some of these federal government officials, including the 8th District Coast Guard, which does include the coast of Louisiana and Texas, as well as FEMA. Districts 4 and 6 are what Louisiana and Mississippi fall under. I'm also going to grab these Louisiana government officials and Mississippi government officials. So those are going to be governors, emergency managers, Let's see if there's any other relevant channels in here. Nope, that looks good. So here, I may choose to filter this further down. As you can see, the storm has passed out of this area. So these channels are no longer strictly talking about the tropical storm. For an example, spread of some of those keywords, I have this list prepared here. These can be hyper-specific or broad. It's all about your preferences and what kinds of events you want to include or exclude. So after filtering that down, you can now see we have very relevant alerts, emergency declaration, and maybe some historical things that we want to filter out, such as Hurricane Irma for Miami. That's going to be from FEMA or Michael. In this case, we might not want to include hurricane as a keyword, since Cristobal only qualified as a tropical storm. After that's saved, that will start to populate. Another gadget type, very useful to include, and again for that 24/7 monitoring, is a news gadget. This is something that you probably want to select more local or national news outlets. It's not a sure thing that news outlets overseas are going to be talking about the same Cristobal. So again, I'm setting my look back to include more historical alerts. I'm going to this workspace. I'm going to grab a Bing news search, directly looking for Cristobal. If I want to preview what's in this channel, that's easy. Before I commit, I can just click on it and take a look and see, is this news relevant or not? In this case, it is. I'm also going to grab, we have two channels here, Louisiana News and a Mississippi News, and these are each unfiltered. Then there's an aggregate of those two channels that's already pre-filtered for those same Cristobal keywords I used on the government officials. Just to make it easier for me, I'm going to select this pre-filtered channel so that I know going into this gadget, these are probably going to be on topic already. I can make a more strict filter if I want it very specific to this tropical storm and include an additional layer like this. Power outages are, of course, a high concern as well during hurricanes and tropical storms. So I'm going to include a gadget here specifically dealing with that. I can stick strictly with maybe the official utilities channels, or I can include maybe a broader search. It's all about your tolerance and what kind of volumes you'd like to see. In this case, I'm combining Mississippi utilities, Louisiana utilities. I'm going to check that out and filter further if I need to. Again, I can add a Cristobal filter and see only alerts from these utilities dealing with that tropical storm. So it looks like our gadgets are filling out pretty quickly here. Again, you can move these around wherever you want them to. For my last list gadget, and list gadgets, again, those are pulling in these channels, so they're feeds of information. I'm going to do a travel impacts. Including from the DOT and airports. Since we're focusing in a little bit more on Louisiana and Mississippi, again, I'm only going to include those states' Department of Transportation. Of course, we could select more for places like Arkansas and up all the way through the Midwest, who's also seen impacts from this storm. In addition to this ground travel, I'm going to grab a US airports aggregate channel, which are official updates from each of the airports across the US. Sometimes hurricanes will have travel impacts across the entire country, so I like to keep this wider open to all of the national airports. It's also been pre-filtered for disruption keywords, so cancellations, delays, that kind of thing. I'm going to grab these keywords again and filter down. And so these are going to be relevant during a storm to all of the different travel impacts. And going back closer to the time of the landfall, you would be able to find alerts more strictly related to Cristobal. Just like that, we've got a bunch of list gadgets ready to go. I think this dashboard could use a little bit more visual appeal, so I am going to grab some relevant graphics using an image slideshow gadget. I can adjust the rotation time here, how long I want the image to show. I'm going to leave it at 5 seconds. So I have a selection here of historical images that were active during this storm over the weekend. And I'm going to paste a few of those in. Additionally, I'm going to grab some evacuation zones and routes. So we do have, you can use dashboards to hang on to resources that you can use throughout the hurricane season and in years to come. And this makes it easy to keep everything in the same place. So I'm going to grab these Louisiana hurricane evacuation routes and zones. And you can always verify that these images are the ones that you want and that they're still active by just checking on them here. I'm also going to grab from Mississippi, similarly, an MDOT provided hurricane evacuation map. And all of these names and labels are custom. So whatever internally helps to communicate exactly what people are looking at, you can label them that way. And I can save that and it will load shortly here. Let's see. I'm going to keep this here. Finally, I'm just going to add a link gadget. And this is very easy to do. Again, when you have resources saved, like on this kind of gadget or this kind of dashboard here, you can copy them from other dashboards. One-time copy, easy. I care about Mississippi as well. And there's a big spread of resources here. I can keep all of them if I want to, or I can delete and edit the ones to narrow it down further to just the resources I want to include on this dashboard. So as you can see here, all of our gadgets are populating. We can adjust some of the view settings if we like to show images or to condense some of these even further. We can zoom in closer or zoom out. It's all dynamic. And we can also go in and add a further layer of the TX360 analyst curated alerts on top of this map, which will come with branded alerts dropped right on top of the map. These are all easy to change and update. You can change the keywords and the filtering and the names and the refresh rate, or we can leave it just like this. And that's how to build a dashboard for hurricane season very quickly using channels already in our system available to TX360 customers. Thank you so much for watching, and please, if we have any questions, go ahead and submit those to the side in the chat window.
Thank you for that wonderful demonstration, Miranda. We do already have a couple of questions that have come in that hopefully we can tackle here. Our first question is it possible to share information from the dashboards with other members of my team that do not have access? I wonder if maybe Noah, you could answer this one for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And it is indeed possible to share information with some other members of your team, even if they don't currently have access to the dashboard. If you click on any of the alerts in the list gadgets, like was just done, you'll see in the bottom right corner, there's a share option there. And if you click that, you can send that to team members who are already users, that first dialog box, or to people who are not currently users of TX Global or TX360 by just entering their emails into that comment delimited. You can also send an optional message, and there's an easy way to share out the great intelligence you find on these dashboards with other people.
That's great. That's very helpful. We have another question here about these dashboards. The question is, can I use dashboards 24/7? Miranda, maybe you can speak on this a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, dashboards are available 24/7. Again, TX360 has thousands of channels that are updating, all hours of the day, and that includes for hurricanes as well. Some sources have a set schedule that people familiar with tracking hurricanes may be familiar with. So National Hurricane Center, Weather Prediction Center, usually sending about 4 advisories a day. And those will come into our system as soon as those are issued. You can also set up alerting, again, to have those channels directly send out alerts that will show up on your dashboard, but you also can send them directly to email and SMS. They don't have to be shared manually.
That's great. Thank you for that answer. Another question that we have here, can I customize my hurricane dashboard for my company or assets or my specific city? Do one of you want to take that one on?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that. It is possible to customize any of these resources we've been talking about to a city that your organization is particularly interested in, or in your specific assets as well. For some of the information that we were dealing with today, including the Swan Island analyst curated alerts that we were putting down on the map, we can do something called asset proximity filtering. So you can set up alerts in either the list or placing them down on the map that are only being displayed or alerted to you if they're happening within a certain radius of your asset. So you only get that email or that text message when the hurricane is actually tracking to impact your organization, your assets, the city you care about. And you can center entire dashboard resources around your whatever matters most to you. And we would be happy to help you do that with TX360.
That's great. I will chime in here as well and say that, as we mentioned at the start, this is going to be a series of analyst-led webinars showing you a little bit of how to prepare yourself and your assets. And one of our foreplanned webinars is actually going to tackle this topic and how to actually customize things to your own company, your own asset, and your own city. So stay tuned for some announcements about that. We also have one final question here. My business has branches in various international locations. Do these dashboard capabilities work for locations outside of the United States? That's a great question.
Yeah, I can answer to that one. So, of course, we are super lucky and super grateful to have all these excellent sources in the United States for monitoring hurricanes. It truly is state of the art. However, TX360 dashboards, of course, are a blank slate, and we may have wide coverage for those Atlantic and Pacific basins for North America, but that doesn't mean we can't pull in feeds for other regions in the world. We've used the Joint Typhoon Warning Center for hurricanes. We've had coverage for places like India, which has seen a huge storm this year, and additionally, we have great language capabilities, so beyond English, also in Spanish, French, Hebrew, and Arabic. And so if there's publicly available info about storms happening anywhere in the world, we can put them on dashboards.
Great. So that rounds out our questions for today. We thank you guys very much for joining us. If you're here today, that means you're already well on your way to preparing and navigating through this ever-changing landscape and for some of the impending threats that we can expect. Please feel free to contact any of us with questions. We're more than happy to answer, and our contact information is there. And with that, we'll wish you a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining us.